telethons, TV marathons, all-nighters, parties, live scores. You see the mayor from Magnetic Fields. Flying Lotus was here a couple weeks ago, DJing live to like experimental films. It's very broad-based arts cinematheque that happens to be based out of a historical theater. It's also unusual that it's member-based. So a large percentage of how we work is members make a donation once a year, and they come in free to all the shows. And it's been extremely popular. Membership's up to almost 1,000 people, and we sell out about 60% of our shows. Come Back Africa was not a huge hit. We probably showed it a couple too many times. And that's the basis there. The silent movie theater, on the other hand, has existed since 1942, run as the world's only silent film theater pretty recently, though there's been a couple of hiccups in that history.
So you're not showing any more?
We show silent films to honor the tradition once a month, the first Wednesday of every month.
Okay.
There's been a sort of vaunted unusual history of the theater from the original married couple that founded it and used to run it by themselves, like dropping records like DJ on a Victrola, and he would literally project and play records at the same time, and she would the wife would tear tickets. And they ran, I mean, in 1942, any old movie was silent. Silent films stopped in like 1928, so it was just called old time movies. And they ran it that way for many, many years. Popped up in years until he passed on. Actually, I believe from diseases he got from handling all the chemicals, because he was doing his own restorations upstairs and stuff, and snipping together versions of these films. Then another guy took it over, Lawrence Austin, who was like an assistant friend, who was an unusual character and was eventually murdered in the theater during the screening of Sunrise. A guy came in, shot him 3 times behind this concession booth, ran through the theater, fired 3 shots in the air, and ran out the back. The police set up a sting and found that he had been murdered by the projectionist who was his gay lover who wanted to inherit the theater. It's sort of a gay noir or something.
What is the film Sunrise? What's
the
that
film
film?
Sunrise is one of those considered like it's one of those like AFI best films of all time. It's by a guy named F.W. Murnau. It's a gorgeous, gorgeous sort of romantic film in an odd way. It actually has a noirish angle. Some of the most beautiful long takes. It's a great movie. I'm not even that much of a silent film fan. I love Sunrise.
Yeah.
So it was actually supposedly a pretty packed house. Though I like to joke that the same way, the amount of people who told me they were there that day, it's kind of like Woodstock, where there's more people that say they were there than mathematically fit in the location by like 5 times.
Right.
Everyone likes to say they were here that night.
Yeah.
But it's kind of a famous local story. It was in the LA Weekly, et cetera. And then it sat fallow for a while longer until a very unusual character named Charlie Lussman claimed voices told him to purchase it as he drove by. He was kind of a PR stunt kind of guy. And he had made a bunch of money selling jingles to morning talk shows. So he ran it for about 5 more years, and he would perform a really bad song like, "Welcome to the Silent Picture Show," because he was a narcissist extrovert. And he introduced movies, but in reality, he mostly turned it into a menu for like weddings and bar mitzvahs. By the time he left, they were only showing about 8 to 10 movies a year, like Father's Day, The Kid, Charlie Chaplin. So he sold it to the Harkin family that were Orthodox Jewish hipster kids in their 20s. I didn't know there were Orthodox Jewish hipsters until I met the Harkins. And they're really cool, very supportive of the arts. And they wanted to turn it into a repertory house again, but didn't have the wherewithal in terms of time resources or how to do it, in which case they met me. And I talked, that's a long story, but about things they should do with it. And eventually we got together and formed the Cine Family nonprofit in order to revitalize the theater and theoretically revitalize film going everywhere. And then the last 3 years have been just about really trying to change the way people think of the movie theater. Like I said, we have parties here, live music, stand-up. It's really about trying to kind of form a little community and make sure people have a really good time in the theater again. There's a great back patio out there, for example, where we have barbecues, where we do weird things on Memorial Day, like where we just watch the first 5 minutes of like 15 weird VHS
a lot of information, thank you.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's it?
Do you guys have any questions or anything? Anything you want to know?
You guys, what part of Colorado are you from?
Denver.
Anybody here familiar with the Denver Film Society?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I've met many of those programmers, some of the kids who run it. It's actually not that far in spirit, you know, they do a lot of, like, the way they did the Girl Talk Party,
Mm-hmm.
where they have, like, the movie playing in 3 different theaters, like, it's the same kind of stuff we like to do, we swap programming a lot. You know, there's actually a very small world of places like this, there's probably, I don't think there's any place quite like this, but, there's probably about 15, 20 theaters around the country that try and have a good time. And
Do you have
along
any-
the way, maybe expose people to movies like Come Back Africa.
Yeah, I was gonna ask if you have any comments about this film or any, I mean, we
You know-
read a little bit about it, so we know.
It's not a major area of my expertise, which is probably partly why the reason I didn't introduce this one as I usually introduce most films. I don't know what Jordan already said. Probably the most significant fact about this film is that they lied to the South African government in order to get the cameras into the country. So what was ostensibly, the way they got the permits was they said they were making a documentary about like a mine or something, something just very generic. And then they were sort of secretly making this documentary about, and by the way, documentary in the 50s meant something kind of different. Making this documentary about apartheid. Movies like Nanook of the North, which is considered the first documentary ever made, or all the way through, probably until you get to about the 60s, documentaries are pretty overtly false.
Right.
Meaning, even today, if you really know a lot, documentaries are kind of a little more fake than you think. There's generally, it's kind of a given that people are recreating moments, or anybody who's ever actually witnessed the shooting of a reality TV show knows those are semi-scripted. You know, they tell you what to say, and they go, this happened, can you do that again? Like, so just picture, if you just figured that the point is to capture the feeling of truth, why not just sort of semi-scripted? So they were trying to capture this world, expose certain realities, but then they kind of made a little story to go with it. But Rogozin was a documentary filmmaker. He also did a film called On the Bowery, which was about the Bowery in New York, and like it was kind of all torches, all real bums playing themselves, which is really fun to watch if you're weird like me. The other thing about it is this was the film that probably exposed Maria McCover, who's that woman who's so incredible in it, to the world. It probably was the first time, you know, until like Graceland and Paul Simon, that people really exposed to South African music. And it ended up being the entry point to, as has historically been the entry point to apartheid, to people being more aware of the situation through the music. She became a major international star after this film. And apparently Harry Belafonte, who's a Calypso guy, probably I think most famous for doing Deo
Yeah.
or something, who's actually a really rad guy. I mean, actor, activist, and fantastic musician. He saw the film and was like, she's amazing. And then like kind of brought her, and he helped expose it and get it like exposed to the wider audience in the United States. So it did have some sort of historical effect, and it was the beginning of people being aware of just how bad the conditions were in South Africa. And the music's awesome.
Yeah.
She's a star, I think you see it.
Okay,
Thank
All right.
you so much for
Thank
your
you.
I hope
time.
you guys had a good time.